Hi, and welcome to the 2020 Economic Recession and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me once again on this Monday, June 8th, 2020. Well, it seems like many families are tightening their belts and counting their dollars and cents. And this is in spite of an economy, a booming stock market today. As you know, the Dow Jones is continuing its surge as many states enter phase one and phase two reopening of this economy. However, according to NBCNews.com, it's official. The U.S. entered a recession in February. The unprecedented magnitude of the decline in employment and production and its broad reach across the entire economy warrants the designation of this episode as a recession. They call it an episode, quote unquote. This is according to the National Bureau of Economic Research. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know that on this channel we have been calling for a recession, a depression, as a matter of fact, as early as just after the important event in November that you know is coming up soon. Okay, but the news media that we have is painting this picture now that they're just now saying that we are in a recession, have been in a recession since February. Well, no duh, okay, because remember that we've been saying since September of last year that the repo market has been struggling and that the Federal Reserve has been injecting more than $100 billion a month into the repo market, okay? So we've been into a recession and now we're on the verge of heading into a depression, okay? So, but the article goes on to say that GDP dropped by 5% in the first quarter of 2020, and analysts predict that the drop in the current quarter is likely to be historically steep. So, estimating from the Atlanta Federal Reserve, they estimate a current drop of 45% in the gross domestic product. So, what they're painting this as, guys, is they're painting this recession as a man-made recession, quote unquote, a anomaly in the event of a history of our economic historical times. However, we know that's not the case because we know that we have over 45 million adults unemployed in America right now. We also know that the employment numbers, the jobs numbers, have been manipulated from last month. We have a 13.3% unemployment rate right now in the United States. That's down from 14.5%. Okay, and they're saying that on CNBC and on MSNBC that's great news that we've actually come down that 1.3 or whatever percent. That's not great news. Okay, it's still high. It's still a double-digit unemployment, and that's not counting the unemployment numbers are even higher in people of color and minority communities. And in those college students and high school students who are graduating this month, mind you, that are looking for summer jobs, temporary work, contract work, etc. So, I guess everything, we can go back to shopping now and everything is good because the economy is opening up. This coronavirus is supposedly dying down, and the economy is showing signs of rebounding as states reopen and unemployment rises, okay? So what they've done is they've tried to bamboozle us by saying the unemployment numbers have gone down. But how can that be the case when people were furloughed or either laid off during this current pandemic? Okay. So what they've done was the employment statistics are lying because they've counted people who have come back to work. They've counted the people who have returned to work as being furloughed instead of being actually laid off and collecting unemployment. So that's the trick. And so now the Dow Jones is surging. Today it surged over 465 points. And this is all based on nothing. The bank stocks surged, okay? Some of the leading stocks that surged was bank stocks. Well, obviously, the Federal Reserve has been injecting millions and billions of dollars into these banks to keep them afloat, to keep them liquidity, okay? That means having cash flow on hand, even though we know that they don't have to have any reserves anymore because they passed the act saying that, okay? And secondly, the Dow Jones and the stock market is also anticipating another stimulus. You know, some of us didn't even get the first stimulus. The $1,200 stimulus plus $500 for each kid that you have. So the markets and the American people are counting on that stimulus, okay? The Federal Reserve has committed to a stimulus package, eternal stimulus package, meaning that they cannot stop stimulating the economy. And so what we're looking at is a meltdown, a complete economic meltdown in terms of money in terms of processing, in terms of everything that we have here. And so the Dow Jones is going to continue to soar towards 30,000 points while the U.S. economy enters a depression on the ground, the boots on the ground, meaning your jobs, your food shortages. You're going to see food shortages increase in the next 2 months as supply chains are not going to be able to handle the increase in demand. Okay, now that the summer kids are out of school, now that workers are still working from home, a lot of workers are. Some people are returning, but it's not the whole full workforce returning. So we're going to be seeing that. Also, these protests, okay, these protests of Black Lives Matter, these protests on the wages protests, and just on the overall morale of the country is going down, okay? So that is not going anywhere, okay? Notice how coronavirus news all of a sudden died down when we had these protests. People were in close proximity to each other on TV. Nobody was talking about coronavirus. That's because it comes down to opportunity, okay? It comes down to economic opportunity is what people are protesting, and it comes down to social justice, okay? And this goes beyond just the racial component. It goes to the social component, because we know that the top upper 1% control over 99.9% of the money supply of the United States, and yea, the world money supply. And this is where, as more Americans see that the middle class is being wiped out, as more Americans see that their taxes are rising but the services are decreasing, as more Americans see that they're being taxed to death and getting less services, and less food and water is going to be, clean water is going to be available to Americans home on the homeland, they're going to be protesting that even more so, okay? And so we're heading toward a disaster, okay? Now remember, these initial jobless claims that we got this past week with 1.9 more Americans seeking unemployment. That's just initial jobless claims. That doesn't count the people who couldn't access the system. That does not count the people who could not, who our unemployment benefits are going to run out in July 31st. That's the deadline. July 31st is when your 6-month unemployment runs out, and Congress has to sign another bill to extend it. That's also the deadline when, some have said that a second stimulus check is going to be coming by the White House, okay? So the White House is thinking about passing a second stimulus bill. Nancy Pelosi and her coons and her gurus up in the White House are thinking about passing a second stimulus bill. This second stimulus bill, they're talking about giving Americans close to a UBI, a universal basic income. They're going to up the ante. This time they're thinking about giving Americans a $2,000 check on a debit card, okay? So they're not going to mail out paper checks anymore. They're going to give you a debit card, $2,000 one-time payment. This is the second stimulus bill that they're trying to pass. It went through the House. It failed in the Senate currently, but they're still working on that, okay? So think about it now. With already $24 trillion in national debt, we just passed the CARES Act, the first stimulus package that gave every American $1,200, within reason that had a certain income. And that was a $6 trillion. That was phase 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going into a phase 4 stimulus where they're saying they want to help small businesses and individuals, okay, through another bill that's trying to go through Congress just now. So that, before we're all said and done, but for this coronavirus or whatever it is, recovery program, America this year looks to be spending $10 to $12 trillion just on recovery. And we haven't really recovered, as you know. If we're really honest with ourselves, we haven't really recovered since 2008. But in terms of this mini recovery that they're trying to sell to us, the media is trying to sell to us because the stock market is going up, it is not a recovery, okay? This is going to be the greatest wealth transfer that we've ever seen. This is going to be the greatest depression that we've ever seen, because it's going to affect all sectors of the economy, from utilities to healthcare to government to private sector to you name it. It's also going to affect worldwide. So people say, I'm going to leave America, I'm going to Canada, I'm going to France or whatever. It's a worldwide depression that's coming, and it's by design. So folks, get ready, get prepared. I continue to tell people to buy gold and silver. Not only gold and silver, stock up on food, water, medicine, supplies, survival supplies, prepper supplies. Stock up, because you're not going to be able to get these things in the next few months as people realize that we're heading toward a collapse, like Venezuela, even worse than Venezuela. And in that point, they're actually going to end up bringing in a military, either from the UN or a military from our own country, to just take over the police department and take over or just take over our country, because at that point it's just gonna be total pandemonium. Okay, and the government may either go on underground, or they may have somebody here as a puppet figurehead, but that's where we're headed towards. Okay, and it's a gradual breakdown. People think it's gonna be like overnight. It could be overnight, like the Great Depression happened in 1929. A Black Tuesday or whatever. But this is going to be a gradual breakdown. As we can see, things are slowly boarding up, and these jobs, as you know, that we've lost, are not going to be coming back. These malls, as you know, they were already in trouble before. J.C. Penney was already in trouble before. Okay, this whole situation. Macy's was already in trouble before. You go in any small town in America, or any medium-sized town, or any big town, you tell me, what do you see? Not just the malls are dying, okay, but there's less people shopping at the individual stores, less people shopping at Kohl's, less people shopping at Ulta Beauty, less people shopping at Target, Walmart.